Good afternoon. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to another installment of S.O.A.R, Entrepreneurship Spotlight, brought to you by the Chicago chapter. So, a little bit about the organization. Founded in 1970, the mission of the National Black MBA Association is to lead in the creation of educational, wealth building, and growth opportunities for Blacks throughout all stages of their careers: students, professionals, and entrepreneurs. So, simply put, we empower visionaries. 51 years later, we are over 21,000 members strong, and we stretch 40 chapters wide. So, the Chicago chapter's entrepreneurship committee is always thinking about new ways to add value and support their membership base. Hence, the concept of S.O.A.R was born. So every month for an entire year, they spotlight a member who also happens to be an entrepreneur to honor and celebrate the hard work and commitment they have made to their craft. So I am truly honored to shine a spotlight on this month's passionate entrepreneur, J. Israel Greene, founder and owner of Greene Consulting Group. So a little bit about GCG. It is a boutique consulting firm committed to helping companies transform their company culture. So, with the focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion and leadership development, GCG leverages their proprietary framework to ensure companies are implementing global best practices and are fully equipped to handle the ever changing landscape around DE&I strategy. So, Israel is a professional speaker. He is a certified diversity executive and leadership trainer and coach. In addition to being the founder of GCG, he is also a senior consultant with Envisioning Equity and a contributing member to A World Without Suicide. He has been listed as one of the top 10 trending DE&I training experts by All American Entertainment. Israel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. How are you?
I am well. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I can't complain at all.
Awesome. Well, before we start talking shop, let's make sure people get to know you a little bit better. So, I
Okay.
have a personal question for you. I want to start off with tell
So
me.
you're just going to throw me in the deep end just right off the bat, huh?
That's right. Sink or swim.
All right, here we go.
So, what is a mantra that you live by, and tell me why?
A mantra that I live by, for me, I believe a mantra that I try to incorporate is Carpe Diem, which is seize the day. And I am a firm believer that every day that we have to wake up, it's an opportunity for us to go out and lay a brick to the foundation that we're trying to build, be it for our own business, be it for some level of social responsibility. But for me, it would definitely be Carpe Diem and seizing the day.
Awesome. So seizing the day. Um, so you decide to start this business and in essence seize every day, right? Tell me
Yes.
a little bit about your story and how you got to the place of deciding to start your own business.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll go back when I first started working corporate. I started in telecom. So I've been in tech for 20 plus years. And I would get promoted relatively quickly because I was always in position myself to be able to move to a location if I needed to. So there was nothing really holding me back. And as a result of that, it opened up a lot of opportunities for me. So I noticed that companies were hiring me to solve one or two specific problems that they had. And then after those problems were solved, I would sort of hit my ceiling. And my organization would hit their ceiling because there's something called the law of the lid, which basically says an organization's capacity cannot exceed what their leadership's capacity is. So I kept noticing I was hitting my lid, and I would end up leaving the company, or I would go through layoffs. And I took a look at why that was happening. So I started trying to position myself where I was more specific on the problems that I was solving for. And I thought about, okay, where am I not getting that development from? So as a result of that, I started getting certifications in different areas that complemented my skill set and my expertise, such as a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. I ended up getting certified as a DISC practitioner. So all of these different areas that I could bring to the table and add additional value. And as a result of that, I also noticed that people that look like me weren't really getting the opportunities to be able to sit at the table. So
Mm.
I'm a firm believer that if you're not being presented with opportunities, you have to be able to create those yourself. So I started Greene Consulting Group, and that was my way of being able to develop leaders and a way of changing company culture by growing those leaders, and the growth then is exponential. So we come into organizations and we focus on diversity, we focus on equity and inclusion, and creating leadership strategies so that they can grow that talent. And hopefully, in that situation, we become more than just a token in that company, but really a resource that they rely on.
Excellent. So, maybe you said this, help me wrap my head around what exactly the company does. What does GC do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a small boutique consulting firm, and we specialize in diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy and/or intervention, depending on where they are in their journey, and
Mm.
leadership development. So we do everything from consulting. We do educational, where we come in and we facilitate workshops. We do content that's designed specifically for those industries, for those companies. And we try to maintain that small boutique feel because we found that not one size fits all. So whenever we come to the table, we realize that your problem may not be the same problem that this other company is having. So through that strategy and through consulting, we help them change their culture and transform.
Excellent. And I think I heard the word intervention. So
Yes.
how would you step in an intervention?
So with an intervention, excuse me, what we're looking at basically is if they have had something where things have fallen off of the rails and they need someone to come in and help clean things up. A good example of this would be with Starbucks, where they ended up having to close down all of their locations to go through a
Mhm.
DE&I training for their employees. H&M is another good example where they released a T-shirt. I believe it was H&M that read "The coolest monkey in the jungle,"
Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
launched this campaign putting it on a black child, and they thought that this was okay. So next thing you know, they're scrambling and their employees are upset, their customers are upset, their partners are upset. So we come in and we help kind of help them navigate that, what those conversations look like and things of that nature.
Got it. So overall, who would you say is your target client?
So we're not really we're industry agnostic. So our content is for it spreads across all industries, but we really do try to focus on mid market, and we those are the clients that are billing anywhere between 10 million and $1 billion in revenue. They've got multiple offices. They have 100 plus employees. Lately, we've been heavily engaged in the tech sector, and I think part of that is because of my experience going back 20 years, understanding the language and the challenges around tech and what that looks like as it relates to diversity and those opportunities that are being presented for those individuals.
Got it. So being able to sort of talk that language from where you came from was important.
100%. Absolutely. You've got to be able to understand the client's problems
Mhm.
and what they're experiencing so that you're not just kind of throwing darts in the dark.
Excellent. So when client comes to you or maybe you're referred, what is your process like to begin to engage with them?
Yeah, we try to keep it simple. Everything that we do, though, it starts off with what we call AIDEA, and it's an awareness of inclusion, diversity, equity assessment. And that gives us the ability to be able to really focus and hone in on where the challenges and the problems are, and we're not playing a guessing game. So, as an example, we may have a client that says, "Hey, we need your help." And we never get the calls whenever things are going great. We only get the
Hmm.
calls when things are going wrong. So they say, "We need your help. We have a problem with diversity." So when I sit down with them and do a mini discovery call, which is that very first step, and then we do the assessment, which is step two, we identify and say, okay, hey, we've ran the numbers for you, and you don't have a diversity issue. What you have is an equity issue. You're not creating equity for all of your talent. So from there, we put a plan together, whether it's starting with courageous conversations where we understand more so from the employee's perspective. There's a saying out there that if you want to know how the company is doing, ask the people that are doing the work. So we start there and we really open it up with those courageous conversations. And then we start doing the education component, the awareness of it, and we implement what we call a VET framework, which is our own personalized framework, and it stands for vocalize, engage, and transform. And that allows us to incorporate all best practices across all the different segments of DE&I strategy.
Excellent. So, you mentioned something a few seconds ago about racial equity, and I feel like I know I've heard that a lot from companies in this past year that's sort of bubbled up as more important or heightened awareness, I guess is a better way to put that. Thinking about how companies can begin to reach racial equity, what recommendations might you have?
The first thing we have to do is it's kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous. We have to say, hey, I have a problem here. And we have to say there is a problem in America and not just kind of push it under the rug. So
Mm,
organizations have to really say, okay, what does our landscape look like? And do the legwork for the assessments to better understand where they stand. Second is to make a statement. I'm a firm believer that as an organization, your employees have a right to understand who they're working for, what you believe in, and what your vision is. And whether or not they agree with it or not, and if they choose to stay there, that's totally up to them, but they have a right to know. So, understanding the landscape, making a statement, and then putting the legwork in
mm.
to educate yourself and educate your team and do some level of social interaction that really does help you expand your network and your circle. And I think there's a lot of education that comes through that if they can do those three basic things.
That's a good one. And that last one, I know we saw a lot of the public statements, right?
Hmm.
Especially after the senseless killing of George Floyd, with companies saying, "Hey, racial equity is important to us, or we believe in this." But that last piece where you talk about taking action really is that critical next step that I do hope that all companies are taking advantage of, especially during this time.
Absolutely. It's so funny you mentioned that because I'm always trying to pull numbers just so I can make sure that I'm understanding where things lie. And it polled the top 100 companies that are out there. And I believe around 20 of them made a statement. And then from there, less than half had
Mm,
follow up action items after that. So it was just about checking that box, which we want to get away from, and really
right.
implementing some things that drive change.
Exactly, and it sounds like to help them get on that journey, they would engage with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This year has been quite a bit of an anomaly and very different than what we've seen in past years. So we've all been, pretty much isolated. But recognizing that the ability to grow networks and build relationships is still so critical to a business. Tell me, what have you done this past year to continue to build those relationships?
Yeah, it when you look at this year, you really understand just how valuable relationships are and that sense of touch. Because, and I think back to looking at people that are in nursing homes where they have gone an entire year almost without
Mhm.
physical touch from their loved ones and what that does to their physical health and their mental health. So some things that I'm definitely trying to make sure that I've done is I keep my circle active. I've jumped on virtual happy hours when we can't get together in person. I've engaged in just one-on-one conversations with fraternity brothers of mine. I've also joined other organizations to make sure that I am practicing diversity in my personal life, and not
Hmm.
just preaching about it when I step on stage or in front of a client. And as an example, I've joined the Economic Club of Chicago, and every single month I make sure that I meet a new member. I also make sure that I take part in as many events that they have. Even if they're virtual, it still gives me the opportunity to meet people that aren't in my circle, and they're trying to do a great job of diversifying their membership base, but
Hmm.
there's still, not as many people that look like me or look like you. So it still gives me the opportunity to be able to have those conversations. And what that does for me is it opens up a world of education for me because I'm constantly asking questions to see how they think, what their challenges are, and then I'm able to incorporate that into what I'm rolling out in my business.
Excellent, excellent. So keeping those communication lines open makes
Yep.
sense. So what do you think has been your biggest aha moment in having your business?
Oh, my biggest aha moment. I have aha moments every single day and usually several times a day. Um, my biggest aha moment for me, I think there's probably two. One is it's about mindset and how I show up in front of my clients, my prospects, when I'm on stage. Because I remember when you have an army behind you, such as a major organization, I am able to go out and tell their story with conviction and purpose, and I'm sharing their story to the world, and
Hmm.
I'm so convincing when I share that story that I discovered that, hey, you have to show up with that same level of enthusiasm, that same level
Right.
of conviction with your own personal message, your own personal brand, your own personal story. Because if you don't, what's going to end up happening is no one is going to believe in you. No one is going to buy into what you're selling or believe that you can solve their problems. So instead of, halfway believing in yourself when people ask you, what do you do? Sticking your chest out and saying, I'm the proud owner of a small business. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And this is who I do it for. And this is my why. I think that goes a long way. So that was one major aha moment that it took me a while to be able to get the courage to do. The other is I've lost some people in my circle, and it brings me to what we call the law of trade offs. And the law of trade offs basically reads that in order to go up, you have to give up to grow up. And basically, what that means is you're going to have to give up some things in your life as you start becoming a bit more successful. And that might
Mhm.
mean you're giving up, how you eat, how you diet. You might be giving up your time, your energy, resources. But the higher up you go, the smaller your circle is going to get. And it took me a while to discover that because there's people that you don't want to let go, but you sometimes have to. So that was a big aha moment for me as well. The law of trade offs.
Got it. So I kind of want to stick with that theme and tell me what are one or two of the biggest challenges that you have had to face in having your own business in this work
Big
that you do.
challenges. A big challenge for me is there are a couple. One is, being fully transparent here is the mental, I guess, the mental weight that is carried with this
Mm.
work. And I say that because we all the time are going into organizations who may not, their entire team might not believe in what we're doing. And it's met with resistance. And whenever we are coming off of a year like we just had last year, where we watch the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and the list can go on and on. Whenever we watch this, we relive that trauma.
Mhm.
And to see a piece of yourself in those individuals and think, you know what, that could be me, that could be my friend, that could be my cousin, it could be you.
Right.
Whenever we bring that to the table, it really is heavy to have to deal with. And not all the time is the work that we're doing met with positivity and smiles and hand claps. But
Right.
if we can reach, one or two in that audience and shift their thinking just a bit, that it's worth it. But that mental capacity is heavy.
Mhm.
The other piece and the other challenge, I think, is the landscape that we find ourselves in today. And the damage that has been done over the past 4 years and what that looks like now with different bills that are being passed. So, anytime we're talking about race, anytime we're talking about discrimination or diversity, equity, and inclusion, all of a sudden defenses go up.
Right.
So, I struggle and I have to find a way to get my clients to lower their defenses to say, we're just having a conversation. And
Hmm.
my job here isn't to convince you that America's racist. It's not to convince you that you're racist or you've done anything racist. My job here is to simply ask you a question of how might this be possible? And if it is, what can we do to possibly right the wrong and possibly course correct?
Excellent. So, looking forward, what's the growth plan for GCG? Where do you see your organization going?
We're going to blow up. It's honestly, I love that boutique feel that we bring to the table. I've got
Mhm.
some partnering consultants that I partner with. I've got a team of freelancers that I leverage and use. But hopefully, I'll add a few different team members to the team over the next year. We'll continue to develop content to definitely be on stage and share and continue this fight. The critical race theory fight it's real.
Right.
And I don't think that until we have a conversation around truly what's going on, not to convince someone of something, but to just coming from a place of understanding, until we get to that point, my work will never be done. So it's just going to be, grinding, waking up, and carpe diem.
That's great. So I want to slip in one more personal question on you.
Okay.
And we have talked about this incredible work that you're doing and the fact that it is heavy and given this time. So tell me, what do you do to recharge?
I enjoy a couple of things. So I love to travel, and obviously, getting to do that
Wow.
last year, that didn't happen. But
Mhm.
traveling is definitely one way of my recharging, and making sure that I surround myself with good people. And there are people that I have in my life that I have what we call check-ins, and we've got these signs, and I mentioned that I'm part of an organization where it's called World Without Suicide, and
Mhm.
Maddie, one of my partners, she is great about teaching and coaching on what mental health stigma is and how that looks. So I make sure that she understands whenever I might be having a low and what that looks like, and will check in with me and vice versa. And I have some other friends that I do that with as well. So those are two big things. And other than that, I love practicing mixology and just being around good people.
Okay, mixology. We'll
Uh,
have to test your skills one of these days.
I'm an award winning mixologist, just in case you didn't know. Amateur
Ah.
award winning.
So listen, let's say people want to reach out to you and find a little bit more. Tell me, how do they connect with you?
Yeah. So they can reach me via my website, which is israelgreene.com. That's ISRAELGREENE. I'm also on Instagram, Israel at underscore or at Israel underscore green. And I'm on LinkedIn as well with just my name. So any of
Excellent.
those methods.
Well, Israel, it has been such a delight and a pleasure getting to know you and GCG a little bit better. Thank you so much for your time and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Paula.